Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Bertrude and today we're using a brand new build, only the process of making this build didn't exactly go according to plan and it changed quite a bit throughout its creation. For these first lot of invasions, you're watching this build when it was a level 65 build. We've got 45 vigour, 30 strength and 25 faith. We'll be using the strength knot to boost the damage on our weapons a little bit and the flame shroud and cracked here for the same reason. And here's a quick look at the armour and talismans that we're using on the build at this point. You can see that I wanted to use a Shard of Alexander initially, but I changed that to the Star Scourge Heirloom to give us a little bit more strength because the Ash of War on the Devourer's Sceptre is hot garbage. The Devourer's Sceptre is the main weapon on the build, and then we're also using the Giant's Red Blade in our left hand as well as a parry option, and then we've also got a seal to apply our buff Flame Grant Me Strength. We're also using the Erd Steel Dagger in the second weapon slot in our right hand, and that's got Bloodhound Step on it. And then we've also got the option to use the Ironjar Aromatic on the build. So this is the first version of this build that I actually created, guys. I weren't sure how it was going to perform, but let's get into it and start taking a look at our first round of invasions. So I wanted to use the Devourer's Sceptre on the build. I've kind of had a little play around with it before on one of my other builds at high level, but I think that build that I was using was actually a level 200 build and it had a lot of strength, and it's actually a strength faith build, so I was kind of getting the most out of the Devourer's Sceptre at that level anyway. And to be honest, the damage on it was decent. You know, it's not a bad weapon. If you really do build into it at a high level, you can get some good damage output out of it. But the Ash of War, obviously, I just don't think it's designed for PvP. It's a PvE Ash of War. It does okay in PvE, but when you're using it in invasions, it's just not good. It's not the one. You don't want to try and build a kit around the Ash of War on the Devourer's Sceptre. But I love the weapon. I'm a big Great Hammer fan. I think the weapon looks absolutely awesome, and I wanted to build a character. I wanted to design a kit around the Devourer's Sceptre. So I thought, get the Devourer's Sceptre in the right hand, and then we can use an offhand whip in our left hand, and the stats for the Giant's Red Blade really do suit the same stats as the Devourer's Sceptre. So let's get that little offhand whip going and let's try and make a build around it. I knew it weren't going to be, you know, the best build in the world. I knew the stat requirements for the Devourer's Sceptre. I knew it weren't going to be an absolute beast of a build, but I had no idea how it was going to perform. I really was unsure about the outcome for this build, and I didn't know what level to take it, but I did know I didn't want to take it too high. I wanted it to be a mid-range build. I definitely didn't want to take it up to meta level, so I thought let's just level it up to 65 initially. I thought that would be a decent enough level where I could get some good vigour and I meet the stat requirements for the Devourer's Sceptre, and then let's just see how it does. And these invasions were the first kind of like tests of this build. And you know, that first invasion went okay. I think that first invasion there was actually the first invasion I did on this build, and I got a win. And I thought, you know, it's not a bad start, but let's just carry on and see how we do. So the invasions went on, and after a while I found this duo on Gank Beach, and you can see that I'm not doing too much damage to the summon there. You can always kind of tell when you're underperforming in terms of damage. I'm actually doing decent damage to the horse in this invasion, but it's a hard one to gauge because he's not wearing much armour, so he's probably not got the most defences, and I'm probably going to be doing a decent bit of damage to him regardless, but I'm trying to judge it off the damage I'm doing to the summon. I think when it comes to your own damage output, there's always a certain level where you know whether it's acceptable or not. I think if you're underperforming in terms of your damage output, you always have that niggly feeling, and you just kind of know. You kind of know that you're not doing enough damage compared to what you're taking, and in this invasion I did kind of start to feel it a little bit with this summon. It's a hard one to judge with the horse. The horse was taking a bit more damage than the summon, but as you can see there, we missed out on the riposte damage there, which was annoying. But the horse is taking a little bit more damage than the summon, but that's expected because he's half naked and his defences are probably pretty bad anyway, so I'd be doing decent damage to the horse in this invasion regardless of what weapon I was using. I think he'd be taking a good bit of damage, but I'm not doing loads of damage to the summon. This invasion at the minute is going kind of okay. It's decent. I've not felt in too much trouble, but these two aren't exactly using really strong kits, so it's a kind of invasion where if you do have kind of a quirky build where maybe you are doing a little bit of less damage anyway. This is a kind of invasion where you can make it work. So it's not the kind of invasion where, you know, it's not the kind of invasion that was going to define this build, whether it was going to change at this point or not. It's just one to enjoy, and we get the win there on the host, and I was pleased with that one. You could see we nearly die at the end, and we actually do die from the skull emojis, but the summon, we didn't manage to kill the summon. We weren't doing enough damage to the summon, so invasions go on, testing will go on at this point, and I still weren't sure what the outcome for the build was going to be just yet. We get a nice parry on this host in the opening to this invasion, and I actually thought the host there was a solo player, but it turns out he's got a summon with him who turned up just at the right time to help out his buddy. And you can see now we're going to go through it with the Ironjar Aromatic. Now I'll put this on the build for a particular reason, just because I've never really used it properly before, and I thought it kind of suits the build in terms of getting the Ash of War off on the Giant's Red Braid. And when I initially came up with this idea for the build, I did actually think maybe I could use it with the Devourer's Scepter Ash of War as well if I use the Ironjar Aromatic, and just go into the midst of the battle and just pummel out the Ash of War. Maybe I could make it work, but the Ash of War on the Devourer's Scepter is that bad, it was never going to work anyway. But the Ironjar Aromatic does work quite well, like I say, with the Giant's Red Braid Whip. I can use the Aromatic, get in there, and I can poise through the attacks with the Ash of War on the whip and do some good damage, and it's just an extra factor to this build. When I think the time's right, I can give it a go. It's something they won't be expecting. That's why I've got the Bloodhound Step on the dagger as well, is because I can actually like move myself. I can move myself around even though I've got that really slow walk speed with the Aromatic. The Bloodhound Step helps us chase our opponents down, and you know, it's a good way to get some stylish kills. Like, we got the horse down really low in that last invasion, and I think the PvE actually finished him off, but it was still super satisfying anyway, and it kind of all went to plan in that one. So yeah, good outcome on that invasion, and we keep on going. And you can see in this invasion we've got the Kevin squad. Now, talk about wanting to win an invasion. I absolutely wanted to win this invasion with all of my life. You never want to lose by the Kevin squad, do you? Death by Kevin. But unfortunately, that's exactly what happens in this invasion. The Kevin squad was just a little bit too much to handle, and it was after this invasion where I started thinking, I can't lose to a Kevin squad like that so easily. So, you know, that's when I started to think something's got to change with this build. So I had a little think, and I thought, how can I get some more damage out of it? And I thought, let's just take it up a little bit. Let's just add 10 levels to our strength, get it up to level 75, that takes our strength up to level 30, and we've also got the strength boost in our flask, which is giving us 40 strength altogether, and then that started to give us some better damage numbers on the hammer. So, you know, I was willing to try it, see how we went on at level 75. The weapons here, as you can see, are +5, but I actually went on to level the weapons up to +6. And I was happy to take the build back into Invasions at level 75 with +6 weapons. I didn't want to go too high. I didn't want to go much further than level 75 on the build, to be honest. We are using the Radagon Saw Seal, so we're kind of getting to the brink of where it's doable to use the Radagon Saw Seal with the extra damage you take. I think I actually use a Saw Seal on the level 80 build, and that is the absolute highest level I'd be willing to take a build that uses the Saw Seal. So we took it up to level 75, and I kind of knew that if I can't make the build work at this level, then there's something seriously wrong, and maybe I have to think about redoing the whole thing. This was almost make or break time for the build. When I say almost, there was still a couple of things I had in mind that I could potentially change if I had to, but I knew that going into this next round of Invasions, it was quite a pivotal moment for the future of this build. With the increased strength, I started to feel more damage output from the hammer straight away. You can see that we were doing some decent numbers to that summon there, but again, he's not exactly wearing the chunkiest armour, so he's not going to have the best defences, but you know, it was noticeable straight away. He ran a little bit too close to the big electric ball there, so I just kind of let the electric ball do its work, and that's a summon out of the way anyway. But as soon as we kill the summon, there's a blue on the scene that we've got to deal with, and he's got a big great shield, so I knew that I just wanted to keep at him, keep hitting him with his great shield, and maybe I could get the riposte, break his guard, and maybe open him up for a critical attack. I actually don't manage to get a riposte. I don't think he actually bothers to even block with his great shield too much, looking back at this footage. But I'm putting him under a lot of pressure anyway, and again, you know, I am feeling a bit of an increase in the damage after taking our strength up another 10 levels. I am also feeling better damage from the whip as well. As you can see now, two-handing the whip, it's doing respectable damage. Again, the whip is what I'm turning to in terms of the Ash of War. The Ash of War on the Devourer's Scepter is just non-existent. I did actually try it a few times in the Invasions, and if you manage to land it, it does pitiful damage. Talk about needing a buff. Like, it definitely needs some kind of buff to be even close to being viable. But it is what it is. I knew that going in, that the Ash of War and the Devourer's Scepter was going to be a non-factor basically. Like I said, I just wanted to use it for the hammer itself. But I'll be honest with you, at this point, I did start to think that this hammer that I'm using could basically be any great hammer in the game, and I could put any other Ash of War on it and be getting a lot more value out of it. As I said, you know, I love the hammer, I think it looks awesome, and that is kind of the whole reason behind wanting to use it on the build. It's just the look of it. I'm not using it for the damage, I'm not using it for the Ash of War, I'm just using it because I think it looks absolutely awesome, and I just wanted to try it out. It's got some good range on it, but some of the other great hammers have good range as well. And I was starting to think, like I say, that what is the point? What's the point in it? But I kept going. I did a few more invasions, as you'll see coming up now, and I do okay. It's not too bad, you know. I did go okay, these invasions, but I was seriously thinking, am I just doing the wrong thing here? Like I say, any other Ash of War would be giving me a lot more value than the Devourer's Scepter at this point. If there's one thing that was missing from this build, it was a decent Ash of War. You could see there I actually managed to land the Devourer of Worlds, the Ash of War, on the Devourer's Scepter, and it did like 120 damage, absolutely pitiful. All this build was missing was a decent Ash of War. The hammer's not doing the most damage, but if I had that hard-hitting, impactful Ash of War that I could turn to when I was in a pinch, something that could get me out of trouble, which Ashes of War are really good for, and you know, that's what they're used for a lot of times. When you're in a pinch, if you've got a good Ash of War, you can often flip the invasion on its head. But not having access to a good Ash of War on my main weapon, I was definitely feeling that kind of lack of an option, do you know what I mean? I'm basically using a build here that is all just based around normal attacks, and that's fine, that's absolutely fine if the normal attacks were doing a lot more damage than they actually are. So you can see the dilemma that I was faced with. I've got a build that's all about the normal attacks, but I can't get the damage that I want to out of the normal attacks. We had a good invasion then, we managed to get a win against this duo, got a nice parry off in the midst of it, got some good attacks down. But, you know, the host, again, weren't using the chunkiest armour. You know, that's just a factor of these invasions. The one, when I've had the wins, when I've got the kills, they've not exactly been wearing that beefy armour. And all the times that I've lost, they've had good setups. So, like, it's a trend at this point, isn't it? Whenever I'm coming up against these ganks who half know what they're doing, have got good setups, have got decent armour, I'm just not getting enough out of the kit to do any work. But I'm still enjoying it. It's not like I'm not enjoying these invasions. I was loving the process of figuring this build out. You know, it was still a lot of fun. Using quirky builds is what my channel and my gameplay and my whole approach to Elden Ring is all about. But sometimes, you know, sometimes I make builds and I'm just not sure what direction they're going to go in terms of, are they going to be successful? Is it going to work as I want it to? And like I said earlier, you know, going in with this build, I knew that it weren't going to be the best build in the world. I knew that it would possibly be a failure. I knew that the Devourer's Scepter might not be a good weapon at low to mid range, do you know what I mean? And maybe it is a weapon that you need to put a lot of stats into at high level to get any damage out of it. So I was kind of expecting it. So like I say, I was enjoying the process anyway. And I still managed to get some good fights in the invasions I've lost. I kind of think that I give them a good run for the money. So yeah, you know, we're still going, we're still at it with the invasions, we're still testing things out. As I said, I do have an ace up my sleeve that I was thinking about at this point. I did start to brainstorm what I could do, and there was an ace up my sleeve. But the question is, do I end up using it, or do I stick it out with the Devourer's Scepter? Something I haven't mentioned so far with this build is the fashion. I think the fashion on this one is absolutely top tier. We're getting relatively okay poise, you know, I think we're about level 45 or something, which isn't amazing, but you know, it's okay. I'm not too fussed about poise at the best of times anyway, so I'm not really thinking about that. I'm just thinking that I look like an absolutely awesome dude. I think I look the part. I think this armour combination is just spot on. The Crucible Knight's helm along with the chest piece from the Briar set, they just go together so well. I just think it looks awesome, and I've actually never used either of those armour pieces before, so I was so pleased when I figured out that they go together so well. And I think they suit the whole playstyle of the build as well. I think they really suit the weapons, the whip and the colours of the scepter and everything. They all flow together really well, so you know, you're 3/4 of the way there, aren't you? If you can get good fashion on a build, you're 99% complete. You just need to find that other 1%, don't you, to finish things off. If you can get some decent damage and you've got really good armour, then what more do you need? So I invaded these two here, and they're in the grey rolls bit, you know, where you get all the incantations off the big boy at the back over there, and these two managed to kill us. So at this point, I was thinking, I need to pull that ace out my sleeve. I could carry on going and just have the occasional decent invasion and lose the majority of them, but I don't really want to do that. So I took this Devourer's Scepter, as good as it is, look how cool it looks. And I thought, this is the ace up the sleeve, I'm going to swap this bad boy out for another bad boy. The Blasphemous Blade. This is what I was thinking. Change up the stats, reinvest into faith rather than strength. Sort things out. It's not going to change up the playstyle of the build too much. I've still got those big right-handed swings. I've got the whip in the offhand, but I've got a reliable Ash of War, which is going to do some good damage when I'm in a pinch. So I went on over to my old girl here, Renala. I went on over to my favourite lady, and I reinvested my stats with a good old larval tier. And this is what I changed it to. We've still got 45 bigger, but I took everything away from our strength and I put it into faith, and we've got 40 faith. I then also thought there's no point having the strength talisman on, so I put the Shard of Alexander back on to boost the Ash of War on the Blasphemous Blade a little bit, and I was confident that this was going to make a big difference in the upcoming invasions. I also took the strength knot out of the flask because I didn't need that anymore, and I put the faith knot in, so that's given us a boost to our faith, and we're actually going to be hitting 50 faith when I use the flask in the invasions, and that's going to help us again with the damage on all of our weapons, and it's going to boost our fire damage. So this was the plan, and this was the last straw with this build. Could I make it work? Is the Blasphemous Blade going to save the day? Let's have a little look at these invasions and find out. And we're off to a good start in this first invasion. We've got this trio. We did some good damage with our normal attacks, and then just as I was hoping, the Ash of War on the Blasphemous Blade, the Taker's Flames, does the job, and we absolutely annihilate the first summon. We've got the second one down low, chase him down with the whip, finish him off. Now it's just the host. He's got that Bloodhound's Fang, and I'm thinking his prime parry bait, but I almost kill him with the normal attacks on the sword, so I'm just letting him, giving him a bit of space. Hopefully he's going to come at me with a swing. There we go. Managed to parry the Ash of War and the Bloodhound's Fang, and what an awesome start to the new kit, to the last version of the build, version 3. And I think at this point I was rather happy with the change. That was the first invasion, and I was just feeling great. I thought the build is saved. I'm a happy boy. Let's carry on. and lay the smackdown on a few more contenders. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what else happens with this sword. Let's go and do some good work now we've got access to an Ash of War finally. I feel like a tiger set free from its cage, you know what I mean? I feel unleashed. Come at me. I'm not as scared to get myself into a little bit of a pinch. Look at this, get absolutely destroyed. And now I'm coming after you, Mr. Host, with your rivers of blood. I'm coming after you. I'm unleashed. Feel my fury now I've got an Ash of War. I'm coming for you. He falls down here, and I thought he might have actually died there, but he survives the drop, so I'm going down after him. And the host now has just fallen into an absolute world of hurt because he's got me and the Virgin Abductor both after him down here, so bit of a spoiler alert, but I actually win this invasion again and everything's going really good. The build is definitely saved. The Blasphemous Blade is an awesome weapon. I've never actually used it before properly. I've played around with it on one of my fire-based builds before, but I've never had it front and centre as the main part of the kit, so I was more than happy to switch out the hammer for the Blasphemous Blade and use this as the main focus of the build from here on out. I don't think it quite looks as good as the Devourer's Scepter. There's something about the Devourer's Scepter, the big snake curling up the top of the hammer. I just think it looks so good. But I also think the Blasphemous Blade does suit this build as well visually. And more importantly, from a performance point of view, it's exactly what I was after. That summon there obviously didn't have any health whatsoever, so we take him out of the picture nice and early. But I'm just feeling super confident at this point now. I've got my mojo back with this build. All is good, life is well, and I am a happy boy, and these two are about to feel my wrath. Let's push on and get some more wins under our belt. Now we've got a kit that we can actually work around properly. It's amazing the difference a few small changes can make. Granted, changing the main weapon on a build may not be quite as much of a small change, but it was definitely a needed change. So if there's one thing that you do take away from this video, guys, it's be adventurous. Be adventurous and try crazy things with your builds. You always have the option to change, or at least have an idea that there's a backup plan available. There's always a backup plan. There's always something you can tweak, something you can change to make a build work, or at least make it a little bit more viable. As I said, I really wanted to use a Devourer's Scepter on this build, but I'm happy that I tried it, and I'm more than happy to pass it on and let the Blasphemous Blade take the limelight going forward with this build. You know, I wanted it to work so bad. I think it just looks amazing, and I just wish I could have got more damage out of it. But as I said, I think it would have only worked if I took the build up to higher levels. I'm not sure at what level I'd have really started to get some good feedback from it in terms of the damage. I'm just not sure. 125, 150, maybe, yeah. Maybe 150, I'd be getting some really good damage out of it, but I didn't want a level 150 build at this point with this particular character. You know, I wanted a mid-level build. I've done a lot of invasions lately up at level 200. I've really been enjoying level 200, but the game is so active at the minute. It's never been as active as this for a long time, so I wanted to take advantage of that, and I wanted to you know, I wanted to make a build that's going to give me options to invade at mid-range. I've got plenty of other mid-range builds. It's not like I don't have options to invade at mid-range on my other builds and low ranges, but I wanted this build to be mid-range. You know, I just had it in my mind that I weren't making another high-level build on this occasion. So the plan didn't work out, guys, but like I said, don't let it put you off. Be adventurous and try crazy things with your builds. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you've not minded that it's a bit longer. You know, I've kind of thought it was a good idea as soon as I realised that it weren't working at the level that I wanted it to. I thought it was a good idea to just kind of log the whole journey and the whole process of making it work. You know, from start to finish. I've never done this before. I think it's, I've enjoyed it. I just hope you guys have. I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, you know, all the invasions weren't successful, but I enjoyed the journey. Once I put the Blasphemous Blade on now, we're up at level 75. I made a few tweaks with the flask and the stats and the talismans. The invasions were just going amazing. I don't think I lost at this point now. Once I put the Blasphemous Blade on and I made those tweaks, I don't think I lost an invasion. Maybe I lost 1 or 2, but I was winning like 90% of them. But anyway guys, I'm going to let this invasion play out in the background. Thanks for being here, thanks for watching. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I'll see you all on the next video.